Alright, we have looked at complete dominance when it comes to genetics, and we know that there are some traits that you either have the dominant trait or the recessive trait, and that's it. Well, there's another type of inheritance, and this one is called codominance. Now, in codominance, you have two alleles that both affect the phenotype, but in different ways. So when we have codominance, now we're going to have three possible maybe color choices or three possible alleles. All right. This particular type of color on this cattle is an example of codominance, where you have we have some cattle that are completely white, we have some that are completely red, but for this one to have the red showing up and the white showing up at the same time, this is codominant. So co means together, they're both influencing. This is not red dominant over white. This is not white being dominant over red, but they are each showing up at the same time. Some other ways that this shows up in humans, we have an AB blood type is one of the four possible blood types that humans can have. And this would be the allele if mom passes on the allele for A and dad maybe passes on the allele for B. You don't have type A blood. You don't have type B blood. You actually have AB. So both of them are affecting, or both of them are showing up at the same time. We're going to take a look in our Punnett square examples with chickens. And we're going to look at black feathers versus white feathers, and then we're gonna have this spotted feather where we have some are black, some are white, so it makes the chicken look speckled or spotted. Now, if they only have white flowers, then that has to be F with a W. And the reason that we're putting this F on here is because we have where you're going to be using two different letters. Notice in the past we always had a capital of one letter and the lowercase of the same letter. But now we're going to, since the black and the white each are going to influence the color of the feathers, we don't really have a dominant anymore. So notice they're all capitals. We don't even have a recessive letter because there's nothing that is recessive. So for all white feathers, we're going to have F with a W, and for all black feathers, we'd have F with a B. Now, we have a chicken with all white feathers mating a spotted chicken. Well, from our examples up here, we know that if a chicken has all white feathers, then they have to have nothing but the white alleles. So that's the only way they're going to have white feathers. Now, in order for them to be spotted, spotted has to have one of each. So black isn't dominant, white isn't dominant, but together they're both there. So we have some black and some white feathers, so that looks spotted. And normally they go in alphabetical order. That's why the B would come first, just alphabetized them. All right, so we have the genotypes of the parents. We have their particular DNA letters, and now we need to do a Punnett square. Now this is still the same as far as the parent can only pass on one of its alleles. When it makes the gametes, only one of the two can get passed on to offspring. So we have shown that by segregation. Okay, we've separated our alleles into different boxes so that each one of these top and side boxes represent the gamete of the parent. And again, these boxes here are going to represent the zygote, or the possible, what the possible offspring would look like. So we fill out the boxes the same way, where the letters on the top come down and the letters on the side do come over. And I'm just putting them in alphabetical order as I go. And we're going to end up with these possible zygotes. So we've done our Punnett square. And the next thing it asks us to do, what are the expected phenotypes and the genotype ratios? So for phenotypes, we now have three options instead of two. We could have black feathers, we could have white feathers, or we could have the spotted, meaning that they have some black and some white. So we need to look at all three of those combinations. Now for black feathers, they would have to have a capital B and another capital B. They'd have to have the B's. And none of our boxes show that. So for black, we're not going to have any black chickens. All right. For white, though, we have these two here on the bottom, W's and W's in all the boxes. So that's 50%. And the spotted, we have the black and white here on the top, so we have 50% there. Now, as far as genotypes, this is what the letters or the genetic information is. And if you take a look at the 4 boxes, you notice these two on the bottom are the same. The two on the top are the same. So we have F with a B and F with W 50% of the time. And we have F with W also 50% of the time. So 2 out of 4 if you like the fraction thing better, that's perfectly fine. 2 out of 4 boxes meet that description. Let's do one more example. And this time we've already given you what the letters are, so keep the F with the B, F with the W idea for this example as well. We have a black feathered chicken, we have a white feathered chicken. So those are our 2 parents. We want to know their genotypes because they've given us the phenotype, they've given us physically what they look like. We want to know what letters do they actually have DNA-wise. So if we look at the parents, in order for a parent to have black feathers, they needed to have 2 B's. Again, there's no dominant or recessive, so we have 2 B's, and in order for the chicken to have white feathers, we have to have the W's. Black isn't dominant, white isn't dominant, so the only way you could get black and white is to just have, you know, those 2 letters together. So we've done the genotypes of the parents. Now we need to do the Punnett square. So go ahead and separate your letters from each other to make the gametes of parent 1. And we're going to separate the letters of parent 2. And they happen to have, like, their gametes are identical. This black feathered chicken doesn't have a choice but to pass on the trait for black feathers. And the white feathered chicken doesn't have a choice but to pass on the trait for white feathers. But when the 2 parents actually produce offspring, when we get our zygote combinations, notice in the boxes that we have a B with a W. So we're not going to have black feathered chickens. We're not going to have white feathered chickens. What are we going to have? Let's take a look at some of our questions here and see if we can figure out what the chances are of our different combinations. So for chickens with white feathers, we need to have all W's. Well, this one has B. They all have a B in them. So in order to have white feathers, we don't have any matches for that. Let's take a look at having black feathers. We have, again, black feathers has to be 2 B's. This one, they all have a W in them. So that's not going to work. So by default, having spotted. Spotted is 1 of each, the black and the white. All 4 of our boxes. So you could put 4 out of 4, 100%. These 2 parents are going to have little chicks that look nothing like them specifically, but are actually the 2 colors, both of the colors, showing up at the same time to get that spotted look.